Well, hello and welcome to another amazing episode of Epic Elite Professionals in Coaching. I am Chris Aird, your host today, and really what we talk about on this podcast, and hopefully you're getting amazing information. I know others are, and so I want you to really listen. But what we talk about is everything that works within a business, and constantly you'll hear me talk about three pillars: your people, your processes, and your profit. And over the past few podcasts, we've really been talking about people, and really more specifically in the elements of leadership. And so when we think about, and when we talk about, when we communicate about leadership, there's got to be implementation that comes right alongside of leadership. There's got to be benchmarks. There's got to be key performance indicators. There's got to be maybe a mentorship program, something where we see the value in people and we recognize that they can meet this level, this standard that the company or that the community is looking for. In fact, you'll also remember that I have shared with you many a times about untapped potential. There's a lot of people waiting to have that untapped potential tapped into. In fact, just this past week alone, I have met with a couple of our clients who have been looking really specifically at this idea of raising up their people, developing their people, pouring in to their people, investing in their people. So let me ask you this question as you're listening. When was the last time that you feel like you've been invested in? Just think about that for a moment. When was the last time that someone poured in to you? Everyone's going to have a different answer. Some are going to say, I've never felt that way. Other people are being like, yeah, I've been able to do this, X, Y, and Z, right? And then there's going to be some people in the middle. People need to know our intentions. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are a leader in community. You probably are. You're developing yourself by listening to podcasts. You're not just hearing it, you're listening to it, and you're looking for ways to implement what you're listening to, taking those golden nuggets, if you will, of wisdom and turning them into something tangible that you, yourself, your family, your employees or coworkers or community people can tap into. And so today, as we're thinking about investing in people, pouring into others, let me share with you once again, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Can't do it. Not at all. If you are experiencing drought in your life, you can't give someone what you don't have. Therefore, you've got to find ways to fill you up as that leader. And then as you are becoming full, you need to make sure that that source is continuing to pour into you so that you can pour into others, so that your level, whatever level you want it to be, remains the same. Are you with me on this? Now, one of the ways in which we can do this is to really help each other out through leading one another, peer development. I mentioned earlier in the podcast, mentoring one another. I'd really like to offer this idea and kind of wrapping all this up under maybe coaching your other team members. Now, you don't have to be a certified coach to do that. You don't have to be, like myself, a consultant to do that. However, there is an opportunity here for you to kind of start thinking about what you do and what you can do for others. Maybe it's, like I said, the mentorship program. Maybe you're going to take a couple of employees under your wing and you're going to just mentor them. You're going to develop them. Maybe the company puts something together. The catch is, and while there's a lot of great programs out there, if you're in a church, maybe it's a lot of a great ministry opportunity out there. The catch is they fail when we choose not to implement them. They fail when we choose not to be consistent with them. They fail when nobody is following through with it, is being invested in, is being poured into. So I'm going to give you a few pointers today, and it comes right off of these two client meetings that I've had this week. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get this out there. People can do with this information as they want. Sometimes we just don't have the time to do that for others. And so we bring in an outside source to really help work on the business, work on the people instead of working in the business with the people in it, right? So when you're looking at leading, guiding, coaching, whatever word you want to use, there's so many buzzwords out there. Really what it's about is developing people. Right? This is something I've been doing for 30 plus years, developing people and growing businesses. And you cannot grow a business if the people themselves are not being developed. Sure, you can look at growing a business because of the money in the bank, but are the people going to stay? What is your turnover rate? Are they being developed? Are they being invested in? Do you have the next supervisor or manager handpicked? And are you grooming them to be what you want them to be, what the standard, what the culture of the workplace is looking for? So this is, if you can jot down, grab a pad of paper, pen, pencil, your tablet, whatever. And I want to have you jot down some things here, because I think it's going to be really, really important for you to think about this. And again, this is something that I'm bringing to clients. They're using it and they're finding great success with it. Okay. So here's the first one. It's really, really important. Guiding, leading, coaching, whatever buzzword. It's all about mentoring people. It's all about grooming them, right? Developing them. You want to ask guiding questions, right? You want to ask questions that do not require a yes or no response. You're not going to get anywhere with that. Maybe a little bit of information. But if you ask guiding questions, then what you do is you frame the question so that you can get some sort of deep, educated response from them that they have had to think through. There are so many different scenarios. I couldn't even begin to think about what that could look like. However, when you think about asking guided questions, I'm going to give you a couple of tips here. First of all, if you're the one asking the guided question, you really have to retreat. You have to recess in your mind to make sure that you are framing that question the way you want it so that you get the response that you're looking for. You're not looking for the right response. You're looking for their educated response. Are you with me? So when you do that, it also then feeds into number two. Number two is that it allows a conversation where you continuing asking questions, starting at a surface level, and then you can kind of get into a deeper level with them based upon who they are, and some surrounding circumstances, right? Like, is it the appropriate time of the day? Is it the appropriate place to ask these questions, right? And again, I'm thinking from a leadership perspective. You can use this in your home as you're raising your children, or between spouses, or any type of relationship, community leadership, as well as your business, right? These are the type of framework questions I'm looking for. Number two, you want to recognize what's going well. Right. So if you're looking to have that conversation with someone, you want to share with them what's going really, really well. And if it's a question to get them to understand what may not be working well, then you frame that question to do so. But you really want them to understand what's going well, that they're meeting expectations of the company, meeting expectations of the public, whatever the case might be. So that's number two. Number three, you want to listen, not just hear them. You want to put any device away that's going to distract you. Case in point, you can sit there and have a conversation with your spouse at night while having the TV on. Maybe the kids are playing in the background or whatever the case might be. You can literally hear all three of those things going on. The catch is you're probably not intentionally listening, actively listening to the conversation with you and your wife or your spouse. Right? Because you're not fixated on that conversation. And so you can hear everything else going on, but if you're going to actively engage, that becomes listening. So you want to listen when you're coaching or leading or grooming. Again, we're back to the word of empowering your team, right? You want to listen and you want to empower those people. You want to give them steps. You want to give them something to take with that they're supposed to do, that they're responsible for, that they feel good about. And they may not feel comfortable with it, but they understand the value that they're bringing to the table and the further commitment that you're asking them to provide. Number four, you want to understand their perspective. This is about not just being sympathetic, but empathetic as much as possible. You want to understand where they're coming from. It might be their age, it might be their gender, it might be their workplace environment or that particular division of the workplace. It might be even knowing what's going on at home or a loss of a loved one recently, and they're just kind of going through some traumatic things. These are things, while you understand it, it may mean that while you understand it, it's not right or wrong, but you understand their perspective, because then you can validate it, right? Then what you want to do, and this is the fifth one, is you want to talk about next steps. And this kind of ties into empowering them as well as understanding their perspective. When you talk about next steps, you're saying, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we need you to be. I'm going to walk this process with you. This is the next couple of steps. And when we get here, then we're going to talk about the next couple of steps. But I'm here to listen. I'm here to encourage. I'm here to educate you. I'm here to empower you. I'm here for you to be a best version of yourself. And this company, myself, whatever the case you might be, is we're going to do this for you because we believe in you. We value you. We appreciate all that you do. Now, this also goes into number 6, and that's when we're talking about when we talk about growing people. We talk about leading, grooming, coaching, whatever the phrase word that you want to use is. You want to do this in the moment. If there's an opportunity, and there will always be an opportunity, as there's an opportunity to bring them up, you can take that opportunity to say, listen, this is what we're going through right now. How do you think you did in this particular situation? How do you think this company handled X, Y, and Z, right? So you're really taking that quick moment, and you value the time, right? You want to make sure that you've got some parameters around how long you're going to do this for. But you want to take care of this moment in the moment. You want to take care of this person in the moment. There's a lot of times where in parenting, they'll tell you to correct the behavior right there and then, because if you wait until the end of the day to correct the behavior, it's kind of lost its awareness, right? You even do this with animals. You correct the behavior in the animal at that moment. Otherwise, they don't understand later on down the road why they're being corrected. It's the same way in our mentors and our teams. We want to take these moments to make sure that we are optimizing it. We are fulfilling all that they can be. And along through that becomes the training, the mentoring, and all of that. And 7, and this little process here for you, is commit to continuous learning. When we do this, when we ourselves as the leaders are leading by example, we're continuing learning not only about ourselves, but about the surroundings around us, the workplace environment, maybe the community or the culture in which we're serving or producing a product for people. We want to continually learn. When we do this, we can then raise the expectations of somebody else and say, listen, I really see you becoming this position here in X amount of time. In doing so, this is what has helped me. Do you believe that you can do this? And if so, would you be open to joining me in this process, right? And I'm being very general with this at the moment, but I want to give you an understanding of what it means to commit to continuous learning. It's not just reading. It's not just going to workshops. Learning means also kind of going around the workplace and learning what other people do, being educated about what other people do, being educated about who they are as a person, about how this department flows with this department, even though they're separated, and we need this department in order for this department to follow through with, the ending process of whatever it is that we're doing. So that idea of continuous learning means that we're constantly aware as a leader. The moment we lose our fingers on the pulse of the people that we're working with, or the business or the community, we then start to lose an awareness of what we need to bring to the table. Are you with me? So, all this to say, we need to realize that we all want something different. We all have different backgrounds, experiences, education levels, and some of that matters, some of it doesn't matter. And we just need to realize that we're all created different, right? And in that, when we realize that, we recognize that. So we go from realizing that to recognizing that to respecting that everyone is different. Let's listen. Let's empower one another. How about you and me being empowered by it because we're listening to somebody? They then empower us because of their experiences, their education, their background. What makes them different? What makes them tick? What their passions are, what they're really good at, what they're not so good at, and where they would like some help in that, right? So when we do that, when we realize that everyone's different, it's just a flat out understanding. Okay, I agree. Everyone's different. Now we can recognize the differences, and that causes the respect in the differences. See where we're headed? Love it. Love it, love it, love it. This is why I do what I do. I love it. So we also want to think self-awareness and encouragement. We want to think about encouraging people and not criticizing. When we respect people, there's a form of encouragement. There's a level of encouragement that automatically is married to the respect. And so we're going to be very tempered to criticize one another because of that respect. So it just flows simultaneously into each other. And then I would say this, when you're working with teams, when you're working with people, and even if you're not a part of their team, just people in general, right? If we respect them and we're quick to not criticize, we're quick to understand, right? And we're making sure that we all understand that we're all people, right? Then we also then come into a trusted relationship with them somewhere down the road. And if you're in trusted relationships now, then this can apply to you. And I want to encourage us to challenge our thinking, our levels of thinking, and not just floating in with status quo, but to literally ask the questions why. I just kind of started to laugh because I remember my children somewhere between the age of 18 months and 2 to 3 years. You'll remember this, right? If you have children or you have a niece or a nephew or you've just been around children that age, one of their favorite questions to ask is what? Yeah, why? Why? Well, because this. Why? Well, because why? They are in this understanding of wanting to know what the world around them is like. Why do we do this? I'm now setting my own mindset to understand that this is what I can get away with. This is what I can't get away with. This is why we do what we do. This is why we don't do what we don't do, right? So we get to answer those questions why. And sometimes we're not asking that question, but we're going to phrase the question, right? We're going to frame the question in the way in which gets people to think about the why question, challenging the thinking. Why are we doing it this way? Is there any opportunity for improving our processes? Is there any opportunity for improving our people and what we do with them and how they respond to us? Is there any, so you see what I'm saying? So when we challenge our thinking, it's more than just teaching on how to do a job. It's creating an opportunity and a culture that gets people thinking and then strategizing. That's what we want. We want people around us that are thinkers. We want people around us that are strategizers. And not everybody is going to do that, and that's fine. But we can work with them to a certain level and then bring others into a certain level. And then we get to make educated responses or decisions on the way in which we're going to lead, the way we're going to groom other people, we're going to develop them, or in the way in which we take the business in our community. Right? I mean, this just absolutely should make sense. And sometimes we just get in and we start doing, and that's what I call working in the business. To think, to create the space and the opportunity to challenge the thinking is what I like to call working on the business. And this is where people the brainstorm happens, that the creativity flows. This is where work really gets done, right? Because now we're thinking about the business, we're thinking about the people, and we're thinking about how we can work on both of those platforms, if you will. And it really takes in an opportunity to look for alternative solutions that will help solve the challenges of our business, of our people. I would also include this. Lastly, I'll wrap up with this. If you have any acknowledgement of team sports, you will know that it is in our human nature to win, just to win. Want to win. Want to win. I'm competitive. I want to win. That may not be your thought process. That may not be my thought process, but in all of us, we at some point in time in our lives, when we start getting graded for homework, we recognize that that's important. We recognize that it can show us where our blind spots are, where our weaknesses are. And so some of us might do better in some classes than in others. There are other people out there, and I love them as well, that excel at all of those classes. And maybe they don't do so well at common sense. Who knows? All this to say is that we like to win. And sometimes if we come in second or fifth place, or even like myself, sometimes who was the last kid picked up on dodgeball or whatever on the playground, I recognize that there was an opportunity to do something better. You've got this in some of the greats like Tom Brady, who was not drafted as the first round draft pick. He wasn't. I'm not quite sure where it was, but it was down the line. He was not drafted as the quarterback number one. He was down the line. And what did he do? He took that opportunity to win, to coach himself, to take personal responsibility, to find people that were going to work with him, to elevate him into the position that he is now. So my last point to you all listening right now is this: be with people, develop your team, develop your people to win. And it's not about winning, is not about everything, right? And everything is not about winning. But when we win, it's about recognizing that we are all winning together, that we've elevated somebody, that we can celebrate with them in their accomplishments. And the game is never over, right? When we talk about business and leadership, it's not. There's always room for improvement. The win is celebrating those accomplishments. The win is literally helping them go from this platform to this platform, and it's kind of a staircase going up. We help them achieve those different benchmarks, not only in their personal life, but their professional life. When we do this together as a team, we celebrate together as a team. That individual feels rewarded. That individual feels valued. The team is rewarded. The team is valued. The company is rewarded. The company is valued. And you know who else prospers out of this? The community. The community gets rewarded. The community gets valued. So all this, I'm not going to repeat all this in summary, but I want to just, hopefully you'll take this, rewind it, leave some comments. I would love to hear from you as well. You guys know how to get a hold of me. It's been a pleasure to host this podcast of EPIC, this episode of EPIC, Elite Professionals in Coaching. Join me next week when we continue to talk about leadership. You'll get some more golden nuggets of wisdom. And again, feel free to reach out to me. I hope you have an amazing day. Make it an amazing day. And as I always like to say, live with purpose.